Hello everyone. Today I am going to make a video that is very different from the rest of the videos that I make on this channel, but I think that it's going to be helpful for the people that are in the same position that I was about a month ago. So if you are a subscriber, you can just ignore it. And if you are new here, hello, my name is Ana Lopez de Guereño. I am a newly certified PCC coach. I also am a psychological consultant and I have a PhD in physical chemistry and a lot of other things. So basically, if you're interested, I can link my socials down below. But my purpose for this video is to help people who are preparing for their PCC credentialing exam from ICF. And without further ado, I am going to talk about what helped me prepare. I have studied for the majority of my life, and I'm going to combine tips in general and for the specifics of this PCC credentialing exam. So first of all, I passed the same exam twice because 2 years ago when I was receiving my ACC credential, it was the same exam, and it's the old version of the exam. Now I think it's going to be changed, but I think this video is still going to be relevant because there is still going to be a huge part of the exam that is going to be this best worst scenario type questions. So even several years later, I think it's still going to apply for the preparation for the exam. So this current version of the exam consists of 78 questions that are separated in two parts, and there is a 10-minute break in between. You can pass it either in one of the Pearson VUE centers or at home. I actually really recommend, if there is a test center near where you live, to go there, because on the day of the exam, it's going to be stressful anyway. And at least there you don't have to think about the logistics of it, and in case of an internet malfunction or whatever, you are not responsible for it. So if you have the possibility, I really recommend going to the center, which I did, and I did it in two different centers, and my experience was actually really different. I will talk about it a little bit later, but also, yeah, so there are 78 questions divided in two parts, 39 questions each. And it's important to know that when you are passing the exam, when you take a break, you cannot go back to the first part of your exam. So before you submit the first part, if you want to take a break, which I really recommend you do, you need to revise it and make sure that everything is correct. That being said, also the questions are, there's a scenario, there are 4 different answers, and you have to choose the worst possible answer and the best possible answer. And there are some sort of like 2 little baskets where you drag and drop these answers. And there is no penalty for a wrong answer. So even if you're not sure, still put something there, because I mean, you're not going to be deducted points. You are going to be like, if you answer incorrectly, there is just like no point there. Now about my experience with the test center. So the first time that I passed the exam, I did it in a different one than I did now. The one that I did it first time somehow wasn't available for the dates, and my experience was very different. So in the first one, the rules were way more relaxed, and I think I was even allowed to take my water bottle with me, if I'm not mistaken. But in the second one, and in general, like the environment there was much, much more chill. In the second one, it was like I was going into prison. So they asked me to take off every piece of jewelry that I had. I had to show my pockets, my ankles, my shoes, like everything, that I'm not bringing in any piece of paper. You have to dispose of the um, tissues if you want to have any. You cannot bring your water bottle with you, like except for glasses. They give you earplugs and like a little board to write on. They provide everything on the spot. You can bring nothing in. And if you want to have a sip of water or eat something, you have to ask for an unscheduled break, or you can do it during the scheduled break, which is 10 minutes in between the two parts of the exam. It is a very challenging physically for me exam because you have to be there. Since English is not my first language, I got an hour extension to pass the exam. I finished early anyway, but I think I finished maybe 40 minutes early. So actually, I made use of this extra time. So if you are also doing it in a language which is not your native language, I recommend that you also make use of it because it's many questions and you have to be concentrated and you need this time really. It is really physically exhausting because yeah, you have to be there for 4 hours straight. You have to be reading the situations. You have to be very careful with the words that are there because there are some markers that I will talk a bit later about. And also you have to keep in mind you can flag questions for review as you go and you can go back and review these questions, but I would not recommend that you flag too many questions because that means that you will have to go back and you would have to review them again and read them again and remember the question again, because after 40 questions you will not remember it that well. And in my particular center, I was doing it in Berlin, Germany. So here, AC is not something that is very common. So it was not even that hot during the day, but somehow it was very stuffy in the room. And someone was passing gas all the time, like some other person that was with me there. And that was kind of not very pleasant. And yeah, so I felt thirsty and kind of hot the majority of the time of the exam, and the smell was not the best. So this is a downside. Another center that I remember, I also passed the exam in the summer, but I don't remember it being hot there. So I think it kind of just the luck. And yeah, so about how to answer these questions, when you go through them, you have the ability, as I said, first of all, yeah, you can choose the color of the screen and the color of the font that is there, which I changed to like light yellow and black or light yellow and dark blue just for it to be less harsh to the eyes. And if you have like a blue UV blocking glasses, I really recommend you take them there because the screen you cannot adjust. And you can only adjust like the color, but not the brightness or anything. And my eyes are pretty sensitive, so I made sure to not forget my glasses. So then, yeah, if you want to take a break, you have to raise your hand up and you cannot exit without a person who accompanies you, and you cannot enter. And every time you exit and enter, you are searched again. So that's something that I was not aware of actually. And it can be stressful. I mean, to me, it didn't like put any extra pressure because the person who was there was pretty kind. I mean, I understood that this is just the rules that they have to follow, but it was a little bit stressful, or it could be. Now, about the content of the exam. As I said, there are 78 questions, and they're all like a scenario where you have to answer the worst and the best sort of question. There are 8 examples on the official website of ICF. I have to say that I found the questions in the exam, some of them at least, way more ambiguous than the ones that are presented as this like open source questions for the exam takers. Maybe it's because when you already know, like when you have the right answers, you can retrospectively explain it to yourself and it's more clear to you. But I found in some of the questions that I usually, at least you know one of them, at least you know this is definitely not good and this is definitely okay. In some of them, there were 3 or 4 answers that I would look at and I'm like, I have no idea. Actually, they all seem equally meh. In order to answer these questions, usually they say that there is like one best, one worst, one near best, and one near worst. And something that I didn't know, and I will link the resources that helped me a lot down below, but something that I didn't know the first time was that it's not actually about just answering like what would a good coach do. It's about understanding which core competency the question is about and answering according to this core competency. So now it takes me to the part where I recommend like what resources to use in order to prepare for the exam. So yeah, you have to be familiar with the 8 core competencies and the code of ethics, which actually the code of ethics is part of the first core competency. So it's just knowing some sort of like gray zones. And this is the question that to me was the easiest to understand which core competency this question is about, because this will influence the answer that you're going to give. If they are asking about a sponsor, about the contract, about a third person, if there is a colleague or a person that you know that works with your client, this is going to be the first competency, that's for sure. And this is why you need to know the ethics. And there is a very good video on the ethical gray zones. I will link it also down below. And the rest, it's not always very easy to tell, but what I did and what I think helped me a little bit was to study very well, of course, the 8 core competencies. And when I went to the exam, I wrote them down. The first thing that I did, I used this like little whiteboard that they gave me, and I wrote them down. And when I was in doubt, because you won't have time to do it with every question, but when you are looking at the questions and you're like, I have no idea what is the best, worst, or whatever, they all seem vague to me. It was very helpful to look at the core competency and think, okay, this is probably about this. And then most of the times it's a bit clearer which answer you need to stir towards. In order to prepare, I would say a month is enough. So I started preparing maybe a month before, and I would spend some time almost every day to do something. I wouldn't recommend preparing excessively, because I think you can reach a point where nothing makes sense anymore. It sort of happened to me in the last week before the exam. I also hyped myself up way too much, and I was so nervous, and I was way more nervous than before my ACC exam, which is the exact same exam, and it made no sense. So I would recommend not studying too much, but yeah, knowing your core competencies, which you actually already know, because given the criteria that you need to pass to be accepted as a candidate for the exam, you already know all this. You actually need to dumb it down a little bit, because sometimes it's not that difficult. It's more like, what would you expect them to think that it's the right answer, rather than what would a good coach do. And also, what you have to keep in mind is that these questions are all created by different people, and not all of these people are native English speakers. So for me, it was, maybe it also played a role that I'm not a native English speaker, but I'm pretty sure that even for a native English speaker, it would not be very clear, some of the questions, what the author wanted to say. It reminded me of some of the older science articles that are written by non-native English speakers, in that you have no idea, like there is a lot of smart sounding words, but you have no idea what the person actually wanted to say. Having said that, I was recommended by many people not to take it in one of the other languages that is not English that they offer, because it is, I think, translated not by a person, but rather by, I don't know, Google Translate, or I don't know what they use, but that it's not really good. And since there are a lot of shades of emotion and a lot of like different wordings, it's actually better to look for these like trigger words or like keywords that are also in the language that is used for certain competencies. And another thing about the language is that sometimes people in these videos that I watched in preparation for the exam, sometimes people say, oh, you have to look for keywords like acknowledge or pause, and these are the markers to indicate the best possible answer. And sometimes it's actually not. Sometimes the worst possible answer starts with acknowledge, because it kind of like, it puts this word there in the beginning, and then the action that follows is actually some kind of really bad answer. So please do not just answer based on these buzzwords. So you have to look for the meaning behind the words, not only the words that are there. That being said, also there are many questions where like all 4 answers start with the same word, like ask, for example, and there you're just lost. I also have heard a tip that if, for example, 3 of the questions starts with ask, and then one of them is different, so it's a different type of wording, then it's a hint that it's usually either the best or the worst. But I couldn't say that I found it very helpful, because these are usually the types of questions that you look at and you just are lost and you don't understand what it's about. Now, what did I use to prepare? So, first of all, there are videos that explain the core competencies in the exam on the ICF website. I would start from there. Then I will list resources that really helped me. There are some YouTube channels that explain it really well, and some of them are underrepresented. This channel is really good in general, and it helped me hugely in preparation. And then there is another channel which I will link, which I sadly found only a couple days before the exam, but they explained really well how to understand which category, like which core competency is the question, and how to answer them. And I found it super helpful. And then what I also found super helpful is to look for like mock tests online, but not all of them are that good. So I will also link down below the mock tests that I found the most similar to the ones that are there, although most of them are either created with AI or some people who maybe took the test and they tried to replicate. I am not sure that these questions represented that well, or that the logic behind this answers 100% represents the logic behind the answer that ICF finds acceptable. But it's good to just have a possibility to try for yourself and practice these tests. And some of them I did like many, many, many times, uh, trying to just get myself in this mode of thinking and trying to answer them as quickly as possible. I wanted to touch on the Udemy. I don't know how to pronounce it. There is a lot of different tests that they sell, like the mock test, the mock exams. I wouldn't buy any of them. Like the ones that I tried, I think one of them I got for free and one I paid like $20 for, and it was a waste of money. They are not any good, and I bought the ones with the best reviews, but just don't bother. Even if they're free, they don't really represent anything. Um, yeah, so I would say good luck. And I'm pretty sure that if you pass the requirements to be admitted for the exam, you're already well prepared. And you just have to be calm and collected on the day of the exam. Don't be like me. I slept maybe 2 hours because I was so nervous and I was physically very exhausted on the day of the exam. I was so nervous. I don't even know why, to be honest. But try to rest. Like, don't study the day before the exam. Let yourself like chill and just take your mind off it. Don't study the night before the exam. This is the worst possible thing that you can do. And in the end, even if you don't pass it on the first try, I think you have to pay $100 to retake it, which, I mean, it's better not to do that, but in the end, it's not the end of the world. And yeah, I hope that this video was helpful. As I said, I will link all the resources that I found helpful down below. And maybe see you in the next video. Bye.